Hello and welcome to Unabridged, the weekly podcast where teachers take on books. This is Sara. Join us for bookish episodes and a monthly book club pick.
This is Ashley. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Unabridged Pod, or go to our website, unabridgedpod.com, where the books we read are linked for purchase.
This is Jen. Check out our Teachers Pay Teachers store, our Patreon page, and our newsletter. Please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts to support us. You want opinions about books? We've got them.
Hello and welcome to our episode today on our book club book. It is Kevin Wilson's Nothing to See Here. Before we get started with our discussion, I just wanted to remind you to rate, review, subscribe on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, as they are called now, but that helps us so much. And also make sure you check out our brand new website. Ashley put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into that, and it looks awesome. So make sure you check that out at unabridgedpod.com. And also, before we get started, we are going to do a quick bookish check-in. And Jen, would you like to start us off?
Well, sure. So I am currently in the midst of Pierce Brown's Dark Age. So this is the fifth book in his Red Rising series. And these are books, I guess they're science fiction. They're kind of dystopian. And they're based in the future basically in our galaxy. And there are different divisions of the societies based on people's jobs and people's bodies and eyes. I know this is sounding really bizarre. Anyway, reflect their position in their job. So it starts with this character named Darrow, who is a red, and he works underground and never sees the sun, but he just assumes that's how everyone lives. And then they find out that there are these golds who sort of rule everything. And it's all based in like Roman society, like they're emulating a lot of the way Romans did things. Anyway, it's really fascinating. So it's just 5 books in. It's just this continuing saga of this world and these characters and lots of class conflict, and it's really interesting. That may not have been the best synopsis, but I promise it's interesting.
I think that was great. Ashley, what about you?
So I just started Gillian Flynn's Gone Girl. Is it Gillian Flynn?
Yep.
Okay. And I am reading that one. People who listen often know that I do not read in that genre very often. And so for my Modern Mrs. Darcy challenge, one of them is to read a book outside of your typical genres. And for sure, like thrillers and mysteries are just not my go-to. But I've heard both Jen and Sara have recommended that one to me. I've heard such great things about it. And I know that in a lot of ways it was a book that led to, it led to a new wave in writing. And so I wanted to read it sort of for the iconic part of it as well. And yeah, so far I really love it. I mean, I think that it has the alternating perspectives, which I'm enjoying, and it also has 2 different timelines happening, and I enjoy that too. So I think so far so good, and I'm interested to see what happens.
Yeah, it also led to books with the word girl in the title. It really did. Like
I know. Several of them just came to my mind. So I thought, yes, I can see that that's true. How interesting.
So what I'm reading right now is a book that I have seen everywhere on Instagram, and it is Followers by Angelo. And it has gotten a lot of buzz, a lot because it centers around social media and the amount of information that we share with the world. And as podcasters, and all of us not being people that would normally share a lot on social media, being podcasters and knowing that is part of the business of podcasting, we have reluctantly at times gotten into it and shared more to social media. So I found it really interesting to read about it. And it is also a dual timeline. So one timeline is in 2015 and the other is in 2051. And I am about probably a half to 2/3 of the way through, and it has been compelling. There are parts of it that I like, and there are parts of it that kind of are a little bit frivolous for me. But what is really interesting is the questions it asks about what we share, where that line should be drawn, and what happens when you don't draw it. So it's very interesting, and I'm really excited to see where it goes and what happens. And so it's been I think definitely has made me think about social media in a different way.
Cool.
So
Sounds very good.
Yeah, it would be a nice one to discuss at some point on the podcast. I think a lot of people would have opinions about about it.
Yeah. And that sounds fascinating just because that's such a new part of our lives and, is changing so rapidly that for adults now, it is really interesting to think about the ways that it impacts us.
Yes, for sure. So there's our bookish check-in. I feel like we need some music or something.
I'll work on that. Maybe in the future, folks.
So we are going to go ahead and get started with our discussion on Nothing to See Here. Before we do that, though, I'm going to read a summary. And as you all know, this is not my strong suit. So I'm going to ask Jen if she'll read it.
Sure.
I totally just put her on the spot.
That sounds good.
I will say that I was preparing myself to look in the other direction so that Sara did not feel self-conscious. And then I thought how funny it was that was my response. It's like, I'm going to look at the ground now.
One of these days, I will do it. But today is not that day.
It's okay. All right. In Kevin Wilson's Nothing to See Here, Lillian and Madison were friends in a prestigious boarding school. However, in the midst of a scandal, Lillian is forced to leave the school and only corresponds with Madison through sporadic letters in the years that follow. Now, 10 years later, Madison, a prominent politician's wife, calls Lillian out of the blue to ask her for help. Madison wants Lillian to be the governess for her 2 stepchildren, who just happen to combust when they are overcome with emotion. Lillian agrees to come for the summer, and what she learns will change her life forever.
Thank you, Jen, for that pinch hit. Yes. So let's just get started talking about overall impressions. Ashley, do you want to tell us your overall impression of this book?
Sure. I was thrilled at both the length and the fast movement of this book. So that was a big win for me. And I think what I loved about it is the story is quite strange, I think, when you're first starting, and yet really compelling. And I think that I'm sure we'll talk about this, but I mean, Wilson hits on some important issues while also just this interesting person is driving this narrative, and you are in this forward momentum of wanting to know what's going to happen. And I just think, I love the kids in the book, and I love Bessie and Roland, the twins, and I love the way that they're portrayed and the way that Wilson is giving. I mean, there's obviously some magical realism involved with the spontaneous combustion part. Or people with a lot of money and a lot of power are suppressing that knowledge from the rest of us. Right. Okay, one of those things. Yes. But I think that it does speak to how when people don't conform to society's normal standards, the links that we'll go to cover that up, for one thing. And then also just the way that those people are totally isolated and alienated and separated from the world around them. And I think that that really just resonated with me, because they're such sweet kids and they just want somebody to care for them and to care about them and to be in it for them. And yet we see this really complicated relationship with their mother, who in a lot of ways I think was in it for them in some ways, but then clearly had a lot going on in her own well-being and could not support them, and then tried too hard, too much, and couldn't sustain that. I mean, in this world that she saw to be endlessly cruel toward all of them. And so I really appreciated all of that. So overall, great read for me. Really enjoyed that it was fast, and that I felt like there was a lot of great character development, especially for such a short book.
Jen, how about you?
Yeah, I loved it. First, I loved it because it helped me check some boxes in my challenges for the year. So this was a book of the month.
It's amazing how good that feels.
I know, it really did. So it was a book of the month backlist book for me. And it is also in the Morning News Tournament of Books shortlist. So check. All right.
We need a sound effect for that too.
Yes.
Maybe an air horn.
So yeah, but beyond the horrible satisfaction of just me meeting goals, I really liked it. I love quirky books, and so I had read Kevin Wilson's The Family Fang before, which is about a family of performance artists whose last name is Fang. And so I was prepared for that. I enjoy books like that in general. But then I thought that, again, the take on characters that Ashley was talking about was really well done. I thought the class commentary and what people with money and power can do, and Lillian's gradual realizations about the fact that her lack of money and power are really disabling to her. And so because she has a strong contrast with Madison, I just found a lot of that to be really moving. And I thought that her relationship with Madison was fascinating. Yeah, and frustrating as well. But I thought it was, like you said, for such a short book, it is surprisingly complex, especially when you're looking at the relationships and then the societal commentary. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree with both of you, and I don't want to just... I will reiterate that I agree with everything both of you have said, but I will co-sign with Ashley. I was thrilled at the length and the past movement, and I mean, it is very plot-driven, and there's a lot of dialogue, so I was like, oh, look at me zipping through this book. So I did like that, so that's my selfish reason. But I also found it very compelling, and I really found the trajectory of Lillian's character arc to be fascinating, and how we see her both grow and in some parts and just stay the same in others. I thought that was really, I thought she was very multifaceted, and I don't know, just a really compelling character. And I think what I loved about Wilson, which this is the first book I've read of his, is his incredible ability to give her such a strong voice. I mean, I felt like when I was collecting quotes in preparation for the episode, every quote that I wrote of Lillian's, you can tell beyond a shadow of a doubt that it is her speaking. She just had a strong voice throughout, and I really liked that. So I also really enjoyed it, and it was like a book. It wasn't like any books that I've read before, so I like that part too. This may be a little bit redundant, so we'll just kind of zip through this part, but what worked for you all in the book?
Yeah, so I think different than what I've already said, something that worked for me was the way that Lillian took on this seemingly impossible task of trying to figure out how to keep these kids who were in tremendous emotional turmoil from combusting, and found a way to work through that. And I think that was really, I loved that part of the book, because I think that while, like Jen said about the class conflict, that there are a lot of ways that she is really disempowered and really limited in her life choices that are totally beyond her control and just have to do with class and what the way that they can make excuses. I mean, the whole thing that happens with the boarding school is a demonstration of how her lack of agency is what winds up with her getting expelled. And so, I mean, I think there's a lot about that. And yet, even so, in this moment, she's able to take these kids and find a way to help them navigate the world around them. And I mean, when she does the brainstorming in the notebook and she's listing all these crazy things, but some of them are great ideas. And I think it is that idea of how do you work with what you have and find a way through it. And I think she does that really well, and that they see that in her and really appreciate that in her. And so I loved the kids. I loved the way that they were their own people, but both of them were like navigating this really hard situation, and hard, like they knew that they were a burden to everyone else in the world. And again, I think that is not their fault, but the fault of society. But I think that they are bearing that. And so I just loved all of that. Her attempts to take that on and move through it in a meaningful way. And like you said, Sarah, I think we see a lot of steps forward and steps back. And I appreciated that too, about her. But definitely that part of her just being like, okay, this is the thing, and they catch on fire, and that is kind of strange. Right. And this is our new reality, and what do we do in that reality? And I like that.
Yeah. And I think that her background, the way that Kevin Wilson constructs her background, makes it really believable that she would be able to sit there and make a list of the possible ways to stop the fire. And I mean,
and how to try to prevent it.
Yeah, it totally seemed reasonable that she would be able to work through that, because she's already had to work through so many things in her life.
Yeah. And I'm just going to second, before I go on to my thing, that both of you talked about the ways that she progresses and the way she is. You think she's got it figured out, and then she's just pulled back down. And I just really appreciated the realism of that, because I think, even with her mom, you think she's going to make this big move forward when she returns to her mom for help, and then you see her mom has not changed. So it's that whole, she is trying to plow through these barriers, but the barriers that she has had since she was a child are much harder than the new things that have popped up for her.
And when she at the end says that this is not a happy ending, this is an ending, and now we're going into a beginning. But I really appreciated that, because that's how it is in life. That's how things work out. It's not always,
you can't leave everything that's happened to you behind. It is always with you. And so even though she's desperate to move forward. Anyway, I just thought that was really brilliant. So one more thing, and I won't spend a lot of time on this, but I just appreciate the way that the premise that these kids catch on fire function both on the literal level and the symbolic level.
Yeah,
and I think that is just, I love symbolism. We all taught English. And so I think that just watching that symbol grow, but also watching it be such a realistic, everyday part of the thing that they have to deal with, and like the stuff that they smear all over them, and how gross that is, and is it going to mess up the chairs, and how are the clothes make the kids really hot, so then they're all sweaty and nasty. I mean, I just think watching the day-to-day grind of dealing with the fact that they could catch on fire at any moment and burn down their house, but also seeing what that means, and the way that catching fire is the rage that these kids feel because of their lives and their lack of agency. And that, Lillian might as well be catching on fire alongside them, because she has that same rage. So I just thought that was really brilliant.
Along those same lines, and again, I'm not going to belabor the point, I really loved the way that I love basketball, and I love the way that he used that also.
That was brilliant,
symbolically, but also literally, and especially that game between Madison and Lillian, and you just want Lillian to get it so badly, but I feel again that he was reflecting real life. Often she's not going to, I don't know, I just thought that was brilliant, and the way that he just wove that in there seamlessly, I really, really like that. And when she was teaching the kids to play basketball, I just thought that was really, really remarkable, and I really like that.
And I loved that he was not jealous of his sister, that she was so much better. Their relationship is so sweet. And I feel like they are what each other has had. That might have been a really ungrammatical sentence, but anyway, for so long that, of course, they are going to support each other. But I also was ready for it to become a thing, and I was so glad that it really didn't. So anyway.
Yes.
I want to read a quote, but I'm not going to. But I will say that, we really did restructure that for you all folks, so we would not read the whole book to you. But what I wanted to reference is just the part where she wanted so badly to make the shot for them, and that she saw their disappointment, and it was the disappointment that she'd had in her own life so often that you thought you were going to get this thing, but then what made you think you deserved it? And I really just appreciated throughout the way that she could understand the way that life had failed her as she watched it failing them.
Well, and her physical injuries that are occurring, which are also indicative of all these things that she's being pulled back, but she keeps fighting through, the scratches on her eyes, and then she gets. When Bessie scratches her face, and then Madison elbows her in the eye and almost takes out her eye. It's just, but she just keeps going, and she keeps being there, and she keeps being present. I just thought that was really incredible.
And I loved that with the elbowing. That whole thing about how Madison is going to take whatever she wants, because that is the life that she has had, is that she believes she's entitled to all the things, and she's going to stop at nothing to get what she wants or what she thinks she deserves, and that she is willing to, brutally assault somebody in order to get the thing. And how then Lillian's remembering all the other times that, and again, the metaphorical and the literal ways that is playing out are just really powerful. And then how when Carl is freaking out about her black eye, and she says about Madison, and he's like, oh yeah, she plays like that. Just this idea everyone knows she plays dirty, and yet that's just totally accepted. And that's the way, one of the ways that she's gotten all of this ability to have agency, to have power, to have all this money.
Yeah. When Lillian thinks that Madison may have forgotten what actually happened when they were at boarding school, and she took the fall. And you can believe it, because Madison has this incredible ability to rewrite the world around her to be what she wants it to be. And Lillian wishes she could do it. And I get it because, man, it would be a lot easier to go through life if you could just and believe that everything is as you want it to be.
Yeah.
So was there anything that didn't work for you all in the book?
So thinking about Lillian and Madison's relationship, I would say there were times that I was just really, it's not that I can't believe this, but it was hard. Like, it was really frustrating to see what Lillian would tolerate in Madison when it was so apparent that she was pretty awful. In some ways, and particularly awful to Lillian. I mean, that she would just take advantage of her in whatever way necessary in order to get what she wanted out of the relationship. Just kind of seeing her use Lillian and Lillian's willingness to just continue to accept that was painful. I mean, I don't know that I would say that it didn't work for me in the sense of, like, I did believe it. There were just times that I wanted her to not be in love with her, not to be able to turn away from that. But I think that's probably, to real life.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, I mean, I was frustrated with that same as you the whole way through, but for me the pinnacle of that was in the end when Madison is like waiting for Lillian to say thank you. I wanted to say some bad words because I was like, how dare you? I mean, all the other things are egregious, but then to be like sitting there waiting, like, I've done this thing for you, when she has laid all these things on the line for those kids. I was like, how?
And when of course she was doing it for herself,
right?
I mean,
that
all of it was
self-serving, right?
Self-serving.
It was,
So even though I think that was the outcome we desire as the readers, we want Lillian to be with the kids,
sure.
because there was no other scenario that was going to work out satisfactorily for the reader,
right?
But absolutely, the burden for her, the things she's going to sacrifice. I mean, what you said before, Sarah, about the happy ending, that like this is an ending, it's a new beginning. That doesn't mean that it's all happy for a multitude of reasons.
They can just save each other anyway.
Yes.
So I don't think I have anything specific that didn't work for me, and I don't know. I would hesitate to call it the perfect novel. Because, I don't know what the perfect novel would be. But anyway, that's a discussion for another day.
That's another topic.
But I just really, I think it's tight. I think it's concise. I think there's nothing extraneous. I think it just does what he set out to do. I think there is, Ashley said this at the beginning, a lot of powerful commentary for such a short, fast-moving book. I love the characters. Yeah, I really loved it. So I don't have anything great to contribute here. Sorry.
Like both of you, I don't know that I really liked it too. I agree with all of what you said. I think the only small criticism, and this would be nitpicking for me, was it was really hard for me to picture Lillian in my head because there is not a lot of physical descriptors of her in the book. Madison's described in a certain way, but Lillian, I feel like he leads with her personality the whole book, and that could have been a decision on his part as a writer. But for me, when I'm creating something in my head, when I'm reading a book, I like to be able to see the characters, and Lillian was a personality, but not really a full formed physical being in my head because there just wasn't a lot of physical descriptions of her. So even when she had the black eyes and the scratches, like I pictured eyes with scratches and a black eye, but I didn't have it on a like clearly drawn face, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
But it's not really, it could have been, like I said, a choice for him to just totally focus on her personality.
Yeah, that is so internal.
Yeah. But for me as a reader, I wanted to be able to flesh that out a bit.
That makes sense.
Okay, so we have been trying not to quote you to death, but this is the portion where we get to pick only one quote that we really liked and want to talk about. Jen, do you want to start with your quotes?
So mine is on page 185. If you were rich and you were a dude, it really felt like if you just followed a certain number of steps, you could do pretty much whatever you wanted. And I thought that is really powerful. Lillian feels shut out of power and progress in so many ways. One is her gender. One is definitely her poverty and her station in life. And then I also think it's this, if you follow the rights or a certain number of steps, and she talks in boarding school, like, I don't think she ever felt like she had a handle on what the steps were. Like, it's like there's a secret guidebook that other people have and she does not. So even if she had the money, if she had been able to stay at the boarding school and graduated, everybody else had these steps that she just didn't even know. So I just think she feels at every turn that she is cut out of that agency that Ashley referenced at the very beginning. So yeah, I think that one epitomizes a lot of the struggle that she's going through.
Yeah. Ashley, how about you?
So I am still thinking about quoting that one that I badly paraphrased earlier, but that's okay. I wanted to talk about when Lillian first decides that she's like trying to come up with a structure for the days, and I just love the way that she's winging it. And I think that a lot of parenting is winging it. And it's really just taking one day at a time and trying to figure out, like, oh, we have this new problem and I got to work through this problem. And I don't know how, and there's no manual. And I'm just going to have to
learn by fire.
Blunder. Yeah. I mean,
she's literally learning by fire. I did not mean that.
We love those puns.
Sorry.
That was great. So, I really appreciated that when she's trying to find a way to have some structure for the day. And what I wanted to talk about was where she's doing the exercises and then they do the breathing. This is on 126. And she says, they go back and forth. She and Bessie go back and forth about how many times. And they compromise with 20. And she says, and so that's what we did. We breathed. We held our breath. We breathed again. And I'd never thought about it this way. Had always assumed that whatever was inside me that made me toxic could not be more diluted. But with each subsequent breath made me a little more calm. And I lost track of time. I had no idea how many breaths we'd done, but I didn't care. I just kept breathing, and the temperature of the room stayed the same. And finally, when it seemed enough, I said, okay, then. And so I think, and then Roland's like, that's it, we're done. And so I think that I just love I love the power of breathing, and I think that it's interesting to remember how calming it can be to do that. And I think, like Jen said before about the fire being, both a symbol and literal. I mean, I think I am a person with a lot of passion, and often that is also rage, which is a lot to contain. And sometimes it does feel like it. I mean, I just really identified with that feeling of like, it is right under your skin. And this feeling of trying to hold inside this like wave of emotion for the sake of the people around you or whatever. But that doesn't mean you're not feeling that sensation. And so I really appreciated that in the book throughout, because again, I think, like you said, Jen, that Lillian can really identify with these kids because she can understand what it is like to feel that you are constantly trying to contain this thing within you that is always there. And so I really appreciated that. And then I just loved that passage about the breathing. And I think it goes back to what I said before about what I loved about the book, is just this idea that you were going to take what you were given and you were going to do your best to find a way through it, and that sometimes you're able to do that in a way that maybe you didn't anticipate. So yeah, I loved that whole scene. So there were lots of quotes, again, I'm not going to read them, that I loved, but I think what stayed with me was just that feeling of them finding some calm, finding some peace, finding some community between the three of them so that they could function in the world. So yeah.
My quote is from page 218, and this is right after Jasper, Madison's husband, and Madison and Timothy, their son, are on the news, and Timothy has been treated one kind of way, and they are all and then Roland and Bessie have been treated a different kind of way, and they're basically, Roland and Bessie, if you haven't read the book entirely, they have been kind of ostracized from the family, and Jasper is a senator getting ready to be Secretary of State, and they go for a swearing in while Timothy combusts on stage during Jasper's swearing in ceremony,
which is a very satisfying moment.
Yes, it is totally. And so the kids and Lillian are watching this, and the kids are like ecstatic. They are laughing, and they actually combust, and it's this whole thing. But Lillian makes this comment, which is my quote: "The kids were happy. They had added another to their numbers. They didn't want to set the world on fire. They just wanted to be less alone in it." And I just thought that was so powerful. First, because of that commentary on the kids, and because they are such darling children throughout the whole book. They are so sweet, and they just keep, I mean, their father just keeps treating them terribly, and Madison treats them terribly, and all they have in this world is Lillian. But I also thought it was really powerful because of Lillian's realization. It's just, I feel like in that quote, you see how much Lillian has grown during her time with the kids. And I just thought it was really tender and precious, and I just really liked that. So that was my quote.
And I did love that confirmation that Jasper is the one who's passing on this
Yes,
gene.
that was,
because I thought, every single thing that the men blame on the women, like the gender of the children, like it just reminds me of all that.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, ha. I mean, it was just.
Well, and I love how there was all the thought about, like, does he have any other children out there? Does she need to, like, contact these women? I mean, I think, like, it was both, I mean, and I think that's true in a lot of the book. There are parts that are just hilarious.
Yeah.
It was both really funny and also really tragic that he now knows that he is the root of this, and that even after that, he just wants to send them away. And he wants to send all of them away.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, that was one of the, like, there are a lot of things that you do relate to with Madison, I think, but like the one that I most related to was the moment where she used that her power to say, this will not happen. This will not happen. These are the ways we're going to resolve this. And I think things did turn out a lot better for Roland and Bessie than they would have otherwise if Madison hadn't finally been able to fathom what it meant for the kids to be sent away. And we talked before about the commentary about class and stuff like that, but I also really appreciated all the stuff about therapy and the stigma against it, and how totally unwilling he was to send them when they had experienced this unbelievably traumatic situation with their mom, and how all that came out. Like, Lillian didn't even know, and then she was wondering, did Madison know? Like, where was the line of not telling? I mean, And
my gosh. And the
so
doctor who tells them that they're demons.
Oh my gosh. And Lillian is like, no. But then, like, that was kind of my turning point with Carl, too.
Yes.
Also because he was like, oh no, I've made a mistake.
Yes.
And then he ultimately is who helps them get out when they try to burn the house down. So
I thought the secondary characters, I'm glad you brought up Carl, Sara, because I thought they're quite secondary. They are a very small part of the book, but they are great accents to everything that's happening.
Mary, and the way that I felt like Mary was this teeny little character, but the way that Lillian describes her, you're like, yes, I like Mary, and you just feel like you can get a really good sense again of her personality and how she interacts with the kids and the rest of the household. I just thought that was really cool too.
And just like the role of servitude. I think there's a lot of commentary about the service component for the extremely wealthy and what that is like, and all of that I think is just really interesting as well. Like, where she's thinking about how many people does she staff, how many people does it take to, and then she thought the thing about the gardener, and she was like, if I were going to staff, I would do this instead of this. I mean, so I just think like all of that was really, again, there were parts that were really funny, but it also was just it made it a lot more complex, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, I really enjoyed that conversation. I just really like this book, and I think it offers a lot for a discussion. I think it'd be a great book club book. It's our online book club, but like for some of our in real life book clubs, I think it would be really cool.
I agree.
Yeah, for all the reasons we said.
Yes.
Both because I think it's great for discussion, but also because it is refreshing to read something that's fast moving and short.
Yeah, because I don't think you often get something that is that fast moving and short with so much substance.
To talk about.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to our pairings. I do want to preface mine. I'm not going to say mine yet, but I thought this was a tough book to pair for me, but I will see what you all think. Ashley, do you want to start us off?
Sure. So like Sara said, this is not a read alike. I mean, I think what I want to talk about is both a great book and like one of my favorite books from the year that I read it. I think I actually read it in 2018 instead of 2019. But anyway, it is both one of my favorite books that I've read recently and also a really good pairing in some ways, but it is very different. So this is Kelly Barnhill's The Girl Who Drank the Moon. And for one thing, I'd say it's probably like upper elementary, middle grade ish. It reminds me a lot of like Harry Potter, where there's a lot going on. It's not particularly short, but it's also written in a way that kids who are probably 10 to 12 and older would be able to access it. Anyway, in this story, there is a protectorate that is basically a dystopian town, and they every year sacrifice a baby and leave it in the forest. And they think that there's this evil witch out there who takes the baby and eats it. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Anyway, the sacrifice is for the witch. But really, the witch is this amazing woman, and she every year, she has no idea why this is happening, right? So she just knows that this baby appears, and so she frantically makes this journey every year to make sure that she's there to get the baby, and then she transports the baby to this other place and finds a home for the baby. So she does this every year. And as she makes this journey, and in between, she nourishes the babies with starlight to get them to their home. Aww. And so she does this, and then one year she somewhat accidentally, I guess, gives the baby moonlight instead of starlight. So the baby drinks from the moon, hence the name, and that gives the baby magic. So then she can't pass the baby on, she feels like, because the baby is going to have this magic inside of her that's going to come out at some point, and the other village is not equipped for this. And so she names the baby Luna and decides to keep her and try to raise her as her own. And I think that, and it's just a really sweet story about them, about the protectorate. So you really get to know the people in the protectorate and what's happening there, and like how it all came to be this situation where they lived in fear and where they thought they had to make these sacrifices. And then you also get to know in the swamp where the witch lives, it's her and Luna, Zan and Luna. And then there is this swamp monster named Glurk, and there's another tiny dragon named Furion. And so they just have these really sweet characters in the story who add a lot to it and just make it so much more compelling, I think, than it would be without it. And I just also think, all of it wraps together really well, but I'm rambling, so let me get to the point. The point is that what I thought that they had in common is both that there's this idea of like there's this thing inside of you, but you don't always know how to control that thing, and how do you learn to be in your own body. Like for Luna, it's like this discovery of magic, and Zan tries to like suppress it down in her so she doesn't know that she has it, because she's like not ready for it basically, but then eventually of course it's going to come out. And so it's this, how does she manage all of this amazing power within her, but also really hard to control? How does she manage that? I think it's about found family and the way that you can make a family for yourself, and you can make a community, and you can love each other deeply, and it doesn't always have to be biological for that to happen. And so I think there's a lot of richness there too. So I felt like those things seemed like good similarities. And then I think also there are some really quirky components of it, just like this story. I appreciate, like Jen said in the beginning, with kind of the quirkiness of the novel, this one also has definitely some quirky parts of it, but that to me, they just made the story richer. So again, that's Kelly Barnhill's The Girl Who Drank the Moon, and I think it is a phenomenal book.
I want to read that. I haven't read that before.
It's great.
Jen, how about you? What's your pairing?
So mine also is quite different. So I am pairing this book with Leigh Bardugo's Ninth House. And this is the first book in a series for Leigh Bardugo. This is her first adult series. And the thing that really connected these two for me are the protagonists. So the protagonist of Ninth House is Galaxy. She's called Alex Stern. And she comes from a very poor background. And she gets involved in a pretty seedy, difficult lifestyle, and there is an event that happens when she's in, I think she's in her upper teens, I can't remember, that is really catastrophic. And as a result, this is going to sound bizarre, but she's allowed to go to Yale. She has magic, and Bardugo reimagines Yale as this place where the different houses, like Skull and Bones, and that each one represents a different kind of magic. And Alex, because of the magic that she has, the power that she has, she can see ghosts, is in the Ninth House. And they are the ones who sort of regulate the supernatural and its involvement with the other 8 houses. The part that really reminded me of Lillian for Alex is just, she is gritty and she is tough, and she aspires to do more, and she would love to have power and agency, but her past experiences have really dragged her down as well. As she is being oriented into Yale, there's another character who I would say is a secondary character, but he does narrate part of the book. Part of the book is from his perspective. His name is Darlington, and he was raised extremely upper class, and he is there to sort of be her guide. And he is pretty disgusted with her a lot of the time. He just cannot understand why she is making the choices that she's making. And she is disgusted with him because she realizes that he has absolutely no understanding of what she has survived and where she's coming from. So yeah, it's just, it is quite long. I would not call it, I really loved it, but I would not say it is particularly fast moving because there's a lot of detail and a lot of world building. So the reading experience would be quite different. But I do think I loved Alex and admired her in the same way that I loved and admired Lillian. So that for me is the connection.
I've seen that one all over, but I have a lot of trepidation about the length, but it does, but your description makes me feel like I would love it, but I'm just.
Yeah, I love her stuff, but then I worry these days I feel like I can't keep up with a series until I need to wait till the second one's almost coming out, or I just don't think I can hold the stories as well as I used to.
I was going to say, I did not realize when I started it that it was going to be a series, and I do sort of wish that I'd waited because it has so much detail in the world building. I know I'm going to have to review before book 2 because already there were details I had to look back and think about, and it hasn't been all that long since I read it. So, but yeah, it is well worth reading. It has all the great things that Leigh Bardugo is so good at in her young adult stuff, and I just feel like this is quite an ambitious book. She is really pushing herself, and I really thought it was successful. So
interesting. Yeah. My pairing for this book is actually one that we talked about on the podcast, but it has been a hot minute. So I feel okay talking about it. My pairing for this is Gabrielle Zevin's Young Jane Young. And it's for several different reasons. The first being, I feel like it has a lot of this similar pacing. I felt like that was a pretty slim novel. It moved really quickly. It had a lot of dialogue. It was very plot driven. So to me, it read a lot like Nothing to See Here did in terms of the pace. The other thing that I think that it is similar is that it has a lot of political overtones, which I feel like this one did, and it has a lot of commentary about masculinity and power. And Young Jane Young has all of that. It is reminiscent of the Clinton era, scandal with Monica Lewinsky, and it's about Aviva Grossman, who was this congressional intern, and she has an affair with her married boss, and basically she is penalized and her career is over when it comes out, and nothing happens with the man that she had an affair with. And I don't know, I just felt like they're very different stories, but they have a lot of the same commentary on class and power and who has the power and what agency do we have to fight back. And so I think that it makes it a good pairing. It's not seamless pairing, but I think it makes a good pairing for Nothing to See Here.
Yeah, that's a great one. And yeah, that's true for mine too. I didn't say about like the class and power and who has the agency and how things are different than what you perceive them to be, that all these sort of assumptions are made and that's not always correct. Yeah, I do think those are things that resonate in this book. And feminism. I mean, I think there's some commentary about, like you said, masculinity and feminism in it as well.
Yeah. It kind of goes back to, you said the rich dude quote?
Yeah.
Okay. Because you were going between two and they're both stuck in my mind. But yeah, so it kind of goes back to that rich dude quote from Nothing to See Here. Yeah. I felt like in Young Jane Young, that's kind of the same thing, that you can do what you want to as long as you have the money and power to do it.
And manipulate the story in whatever way you want. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So the last couple things with the book. Number 1, is it a keeper? And we are going to, for this section, we are going to rate it 1, 2, or 3. 1 is I will donate it tomorrow. 2, I'll share it around. Or 3, I'll keep it forever and ever. Jen, you want to start?
Sure. So I would say it's a 3 for me. I'll keep it forever. I might share it around also, but I will want it back. So
And I did love this one, but I think it's more in the 2 category for me. And I mean, I loved it, but I think that, when I think about a 3 as being something that is like top favorites, even though I really enjoyed the story, I don't know. I'll have to see as time passes how much it stays with me.
And I really loved it too. I probably would be more apt to share it around, just so I would be more apt to be a 2, just because I doubt I would reread it, even though I really, really enjoyed it. I feel like saying it's a 2 takes away something from it.
Yes.
And I really, really did like it. And I'm so glad that I read it, but I would rather share it around because I also think it's a really good book to elicit discussion. And so I would want to tell someone about it and then be like, you have to read it. Here, you can have my, you can borrow it. But I might want it back like Jen. So I'm kind of waffling, I know, but
2.5.
2.5. And then we are just going to give our personal rating with our book love. So how much book love would you give this one?
I would give this one 4 bookish hearts.
4 bookish hearts for me as well.
Ooh, it's unanimous today. I'm going to go with 4 bookish hearts too.
And like I said, there's nothing I critique about it. So I feel bad with both of those ratings because it makes me feel like I'm saying it's less than my enjoyment of it. But yeah, I think that's where I am. So.
Well, I keep thinking about, I know I've talked about this book ad nauseum, but The Heart's Invisible Furies, when I finished that, I wanted to hug the book and I wanted to lay down and cry. It was I had a visceral reaction. And to me, this was more of a book that made me think about all different types of things, but it wasn't something that I felt really I didn't feel really super tied to any character, even though I liked them all.
Yeah. I think it just doesn't have a lot of heft. Yeah. I almost felt like I could have continued reading the book for double its length because I was enjoying it so much. And I did feel like I wanted more of some things.
Yeah.
But then I don't know, books with this kind of tone and quirkiness and humor maybe can't sustain that. So that's why for me... Yeah.
To me, Wilson accomplished the goal.
Yes.
I think that it was very well written, and I think that it seems like what Kevin Wilson intended to accomplish.
And it was a complete story. I mean, it was. It didn't,
but like you said, Sarah, when you think about profound emotional resonance, I don't know that it does that.
Right.
For me, that doesn't mean that it didn't accomplish the goal that he intended.
Yep. Okay. Last but not least, we're going to do Give Me One. So today's Give Me One is a beloved movie from your childhood. Jen?
I knew she was going to ask me first. And of course, this is always my problem. I can think of 10 I want to talk about. So I'll
Sarah
pick
knows
one.
I'm always struggling to come up with one, especially when it's pop culture. So she's trying to buy me some time.
So I will just talk about E.T. And I remember seeing E.T. in the movie theater. And hopefully, if you haven't watched E.T., I can't imagine that's true. I'll just give a spoiler warning here. But I remember the end when you think E.T. is dead. And I remember being in the theater and sobbing. And I was just, I don't know that I'd ever seen a movie before where a beloved character dies. And I just remember I was in disbelief. And so the reason that really resonates with me is recently I showed my boys this movie. And my younger son, I don't know why I hadn't thought about it, but as we were getting close to that, I was like, oh no, I should have warned him. And he had the same reaction. I mean, he was just instantaneously the exact same thing, disbelief, sobbing. And so I had to whisper in his ear, E.T.'s okay, because I just didn't know if we were going to make it to the end. He couldn't even get himself together to finish watching it. So anyway, I just love that movie though. I love it's so tender and it's so beautiful. And I love the relationship and what it says about childhood and imagination and your ability to accept those who are different from you. I just think it's great. Sorry, that was long, but I love that movie a lot.
That's okay, Jen. Ashley?
Fortunately, you gave me time to think of something. So one that I really loved is The Secret of NIMH.
Oh,
Did either of you watch that?
Yes.
I loved that movie when I was a kid. I also loved the book, Miss Frisbee and the Rats of NIMH.
Mm-hmm. I love that book.
Oh my goodness. I loved both very, very much. I had seen the movie first, I believe. So that was maybe the first time that I had seen a movie and then read the book. But I remember, honestly, I don't remember a whole lot about it. For how many times I saw it, I feel like I should remember it better, but that's okay. But I think that the things that really, for one thing, I think that it was a pretty grown-up story for a kid. Yeah. I think that was part of what I enjoyed about it, was that, you know, when I was a child, I always appreciated people talking to me like I knew what they were talking about. And I think that it's a pretty complex story. It seemed that way as a child. And yet, you know, it's the idea of like change is coming. First of all, that there are all these things in the world that we don't know. Yeah. And yet that those systems exist anyway, and without our knowledge. And I think that was really fascinating to me, was just this. I mean, I think that was at a time that I still was very much in belief that maybe all these imaginary things that aren't out there might be out there, and maybe people just don't know. And so I think it fed into that. And I also think just this idea of that change is coming, and that you have to face the way that things can change and find a way to navigate that all of that was just really rich to me as a kid. But man, I loved that movie. So yeah.
My son read that. They read that in his elementary school as a class book. He loved it.
I don't know if some boys have read it. I was just thinking.
Oh man, it's so good.
The teacher read it aloud to them, and he really liked it.
I remember my librarian reading it to us, Mrs. Schumann. She was great.
And that's what, in some ways, now I'm thinking about it, like when I think about like the Nicodemus character, I'm surprised I wasn't scared. I know. But I just remember loving, and there's a lot of parts where the rats are kind of scary. Yeah. But I apparently I have those images in my mind, so they must have been scary enough to remember. Yeah. But I loved all of that. I just found it all very endearing. And there's like the baby that gets sick, and they have to really take care of him. And I just think all of that really stayed with me. Yeah. Great story.
I feel really bad because you all have all these themes, and now I'm totally regretting my choice. But I'm just gonna stay the course. So I have a younger sister, and she and I we're like best friends now. But growing up, we were best friends sometimes, and then we were beating each other up sometimes. But she and I love the movie Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Oh my gosh, I love that movie too. Yes.
I swear we watched it. I mean, I cannot even count. And I just want to say, over the holidays, it was on Hulu or Netflix. And so my daughter was sitting on the couch with me, and I said, oh my gosh, Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Let's watch it. Well, first, I turned it on, and she was like, why are they dressed like that? Because, I mean, it's super 80s. But I still remember when my sister and I would watch it, our friends would not watch it with us because we said all the words with the characters. We knew every single word, and I still know them. When I said, I used to know every word of this, and my daughter wanted me to prove it, and I started, and she was like, okay, you can stop now, Mom. But I just love that movie, and I think it's partly because my sister and I just love to watch it together. Yeah. We love dancing and music, and it was a way for us to get to watch people express that. But it also, I mean, it was just a fun movie. I mean, it has Sarah Jessica Parker in it, and Helen Hunt, and all
a big dance performance at the end. It's amazing. Yeah.
And I just loved it. And I mean, it really, when you rewatch it as an adult, you're like, wow, there's a lot of famous people in here that I didn't even know that they were famous when I watched it. It was just, I mean, it's just one of those, lots of nostalgia around that movie. So. That's so cool. Okay, well, we hope you enjoyed today. We are so glad that you listened, and we would love to know what you think about Nothing to See Here, and engage with us on social media. Comment on our book club post. We'll be talking about it all month. And just thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. And thanks a lot. Do you have comments or opinions about what you heard today? We'd love to hear them.
You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Unabridged Pod, or on the web at unabridgedpod.com for a list of ways to support us.
We'd like to thank Jared Featherstone, who composed our theme music, Strings of Light, and Katie Amy of Amy Photography, our podcast photographer. Thanks for listening to Unabridged.